person sitting next to you may not realize it, may not honor you, but the Lord honors the honesty of your heart. I believe this. It's hard for God to move and do anything if I'm not being transparent and honest. Like there's a communication issue. Like, well, God knows everything. True, but he's a good God. And he's not going to walk into your life and force himself until you're honest and transparent. And I release him to do it. But if we're honest, we've all had the moments where I have a painful prayer, and I'm like, God, are you even real? God, where are you at? You're supposed to be here. You're supposed to be moving. You're supposed to be this type of God. You've been disappointed somewhere in your life. It's called reality. So we've been digging into these types of questions, these type of topics in this series of being honest to God. And we've taken it to a biblical perspective. What are some stories in the Bible where we're seeing people whose life just hasn't been perfect, who haven't lived this, life on a gold platter type of thing, who's had a silver spoon in their mouth? Life has been hard. And we're going to take a look at that again this week. Last week, I preached on the topic of problem to petition, and we're going to spin that this week, and we're going to talk about position your petition. Can you say that with me this morning? Position your petition. Position your petition. I've learned in life positioning matters. I love sports. I'm sorry, but I love them. I love baseball. I'm not good at baseball. I'm one of them kids. I'm the one who's forced to buy a ticket because I couldn't play. But I remember, did you ever play t-ball growing up? Okay, in t-ball, they teach you got to get in the batter's box. You got to hold the bat. You got to stick out your butt. Okay? The problem is when the ball came through, I wanted to be like, and my coach would be like, Brandon, stay in the batter's box. Yeah, but I'm the kid who was so scared I dropped the bat. Okay? Because I was afraid of getting hit. And then I played a little longer. Brandon, you just got to keep going. Don't be afraid. Yeah, guess what ended up happening? Because I was so afraid of getting hit, I got hit. And then I got hit again. Then the coach is like, Brandon, you're crowding the plate. Back up. I'm like, what do you want? You want me to back up? You want me to be over it? What do you want? I couldn't figure it out. But I learned this key word. It's all about the position. It's all about the position of where you line up. And sometimes it's the same thing with your life. Why isn't this working? Why is this not going the way that I want? Where's your position at? And sometimes I got to reposition the position. And we find this in the book of Luke. It's really interesting. In the book of Luke, chapter 18, verse 1 through 14, we're going to break this up into two different stories. Jesus is talking to his disciples, and he tells them a story. And it goes like this. Then Jesus told his disciples a parable. What's a parable? It's a story. Jesus was a storyteller. Jesus was actually the master storyteller, and you're about to find out why. Jesus told his disciples a story, a parable, to show them that they should always pray and not give up. You should always pray and not give up. Man, I could stop right there. Man, I wish I could just unpack that statement. Because what he's doing, he's getting his buddies who've been following him for almost 3.5 years, and he's getting them close. He's like, guys, I love you so much, but I don't think you're getting something. And I need to tell you a different way. I need to show you a different way, so I'm going to tell you a story. So I'm just envisioning Jesus around a campfire, and they're all making s'mores. And Peter's always over the top, and he's making a double-decker s'more. And Jesus is like, dude, this story's for you. Okay, let me just be honest. You need this story. And he brings him a little close. And he's like, I think you really need to understand this right here. You need to always pray. But there's the tagline on the end, but never give up. Before I get into my sermon, can I just ask you to write this note down, put it in your phone? God is speaking to you this morning, and he's simply telling and talking to someone this morning saying, you've been on the edge and the verge of wanting to get up or give up, and he's saying, no, never give up. Don't tap out. Don't do it. Life may have its hands around your throat. It may be suplexing your heart. Don't give up. Don't do it. So he goes into the story and he says, in a certain town there was a judge who neither feared God nor cared what people thought. How many of you are like the judge? I don't care what you think about me. But then something happened. This is hysterical. This judge who didn't care what people thought, didn't fear the Lord, there was a widow in that town who kept coming up with him to plead. Grant me justice against my adversary. And for some time he refused, but finally he said to himself, even though I don't fear God or care what people think, yet because this widow keeps bothering me, I will see that she gets justice, so that she won't eventually come and attack me. And every husband's like, I know exactly what he means. And the Lord said, I love this. Jesus is like, listen to what the unjust judge just said. And will not God bring about justice for his chosen ones who cry out to him day and night? Will he keep putting them off? I tell you, he will see that they get justice and quickly. However, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on the earth? Can we pray real quick? Lord, I thank you so much just for your people. Lord, I thank you so much for this neighborhood. Lord, I thank you for your word. Lord, I just ask in the next few minutes, Lord, that you would just bless your people. Lord, that you would speak. That they don't hear Brandon, they don't hear this person, this man, but God, that they would hear you this morning. In your mighty name I pray, amen. So Jesus has disciples and he's bringing them all close and he's simply saying, hey, don't give up. Keep praying. Don't give up. Keep praying. This is a message that's been echoed for all eternity. We've turned it into movies. One of my favorite little cartoon movies growing up was The Little Engine That Could. You ever see that movie? I think I can. I think I can. I think I can. It's the same thing. Don't give up. Don't give up. Keep going. But the tagline is keep praying. Keep seeking the Lord. And so Jesus unpacks the story and he tells the disciples there is a judge, one, who didn't prescribe to Christianity. He didn't prescribe to Judaism. He didn't prescribe to God. He was so bold to say, man, I don't even fear the Lord. Y'all, dude, you are walking on some itchy grass, okay, that you're saying that. But he said, I don't even follow God. And I don't even care what you think. You ever been around someone like that? I don't care what you think about what I do. And I don't even care what God thinks. And you're immediately like, I'm praying for you tonight. But then we find this widow who comes up and just begins to beg him for justice. Will you avenge me? I have an adversary who's opposing me. Will you give me the justice that I deserve? And what does the judge say? Nope. Ain't gonna do it. I can't tell you how many times I cried out for my mom and dad, would you do something for me? And they're like, nope, you gotta go figure it out. But you're supposed to love me. You're supposed to be my parent. Jess, will you buy this for me? Can I have this? She's like, now Brandon, you're supposed to love me. This woman's crying out for justice. I think that's a lot of like our society today. We have people who are crying out for justice, and we see it not happening. I think we've all heard the traumatic stories of things gone wrong, and we're like, oh, this will be corrected, and it was never corrected. This is what's going on with this woman. But I love this. Even though he said no to her, what does Jesus say? She didn't take no for an answer. She had this audacious spirit on the inside of her that she would not stop bothering him. I need justice. No, I need justice. No, I need justice. Just like Jessica. Brandon, take out the trash. Girl, I'll do it in a minute. Brandon, take out the trash. I'll do it in a minute. Brandon, take out the trash. Fine. See, girls, you bother him enough. He'll do it. I love the honesty in the story. This is a story that Jesus is telling. Listen to this. This is what the judge says in the story. I'll see that she gets justice because she won't stop nagging me. She won't get off my back. But Jesus follows that up with this question. But in reality, will not God bring about justice for his chosen people who are crying out to him day and night? Can I encourage you? You've been praying a prayer. You've been frustrated. And God is wanting to encourage you today. I am a just God, and I hear you. You may think that I'm dragging my feet and I'm lacking, but I'm not. I am here, and I'm listening. Last week, we talked about taking the problem to petition. And I want to wrap that statement up with just these last few seconds to tell you this. Keep crying out to the Lord. Do not be discouraged. There's something dangerous about a person who will not stop bombarding heaven. How do I know that? Because Jesus just said so. He's wanting to encourage you to keep going. So he tells us this next story we find here in verse 9. It's called the parable of the Pharisee to the tax collector. So Jesus keeps going and he tells them, to some who were confident of their own righteousness and who look down on other people. I love this because Jesus is saying, those who think they're don't stink, those who think they're better than everybody else, I'm talking to you. Judas is like, oh dang, dude, I'm going to look the other way. But he begins to call them out, and Jesus says, I'm going to tell you this story. 2 men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee stood by himself and prayed, God, I thank you that I'm not like other people. Oh, have mercy, as Uncle Jesse would say. God, I thank you that I'm not like other people. I'm not like robbers. I'm not like evildoers. I'm not like adulterers, or even like this tax collector over here. Because I fast twice a week. I pay my tithes. I get 1/10 of all I got because I'm hot stuff. But then we get to hear in the prayer of the tax collector, Jesus said, but the tax collector stood at a distance away from everybody else. And he wouldn't even look up to heaven. But he would beat his breast and said, God, have mercy on me because I'm a sinner. Jesus said, I tell you that this man, rather than the other, went home justified before God. For all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. So we have 2 different individuals here. We have a Pharisee and a tax collector. Let's just run this back real quick. The Pharisee went to the temple to pray because it was a public place. Someone's going to see me. And what did he do? He praised himself. How great am I? I'm so amazing. The more public the place, the more face time that he got. All of the eyeballs are all on me. Look how great that I am. Who's going to applaud my devotion to Jesus today? But then we find the tax collector who went to the temple because it was the appointed time in the house of prayer for all people. All people. Not just some, but everyone. The Pharisee came to the temple and he's fishing for compliments. I really structured this great. I had spell check. I hope someone notices my prayer. But the tax collector came because he had spiritual business that he needed to attend to. The Pharisee came to make his appearance known, but the tax collector just to simply make his request before God. We have one who's so focused on his appearances and another one who could care less what everybody else thinks. And you know, that's so true for us today that appearances really do matter. You can't tell me appearances aren't important to you. It's reflected on the way we dress. I got to dress nice. Oh, I can't go on date night with Jessica without making myself look nice and sharp. My truck is washed. I've cleaned out the inside because it's got to be perfect for my princess. I am shaved. I got the right deodorant on, not the kind that makes me all icky. I have the right cologne on because I got to smell good for my girl. And guess what? That takes me like 25 minutes, and I'm still downstairs waiting on her. I'm like, girl, what be up? We have 5 minutes, okay? We're going to be late. But man, like Brad Paisley says, there's nothing like waiting on a woman. Because she comes down, and she's all put together. I'm like, I bite my lip. She's fine. Because appearances matter. Listen, I would be so judging her if she came. I'm like, girl, you need to go back, get in the shower. You stink. I ain't holding her hand all night because I'm like, that's disgusting. You laughing, but it's true. There's people you won't even go on a date with because their nails are too long. Stop it. You know it's true. You're like, could you have the decency to paint those bad things? You thinking it. Okay? Why? Why are we this way? Why do we think like this? Because appearances matter. Like all the way, like we figured this out that we're judging people within 2.3 seconds before we even have a conversation with them. You're like, nope, I'm not even going to talk to this person. I'm actually going to avoid this person. And then according, you're like, dang it, now I have to talk to this person. But then you felt like, no, this person's actually a really cool person. But I had too many prejudgments that I'm judging off the way they look and their appearance before I actually dip into a conversation with them. And because of that, sometimes we call people heroes who are actually the villain. And we be calling people villains who are actually the hero. And Jesus was good with this in his story. And that's what he's breaking down right here. Everybody's like, oh, the Pharisee, he's the pastor, he's a church dude. He definitely is the hero. Wait up, hold up. You be calling Loki a bad guy when all along, Loki's been the good guy. Oh, you've seen Loki season 2. You know what happens. Okay? But yet, there's people that you're holding on to and we're uplifting and we're saying they're great people. But all of the time, they could care less about you. We have the Pharisee who's the preacher. He's supposed to be the hero. We have the tax collector. What about the tax collector? He's the guy who's at H&R Block and he's ripping you off. You're like, dude, my tax return's so low. What you doing? Where's my money? And that's in their time. That's what happened. You have the Jews who were literally in the place of being held hostage to the Romans. So what the tax collectors do, hey, you got to go take your taxes for Caesar, but oh, actually, you forgot, there's another form that you forgot. You actually owe this amount of money. He's ripping people off and putting it in his own pocket. The tax collector is definitely the villain, but appearances can be deceiving. Try as we might, we can't hide our imperfection or sins from God. And I try to all the time. Maybe I could put a little more cologne on. Man, you remember what it's like to be in high school, and you threw on way too much Axe. And everyone in the class is like, bro, stop it. I'm trying to hide, and I'm trying to take and mask everything that's just not right. Y'all, but try as I try to hide the imperfections, I will never be able to hide my sins from God. I'm trying to escape the fact that here's the reality. I'm a sinner. I'm imperfect. I try to lose the weight. I can't do it. I try to exercise. I try to do this. I try to look the way that people want me to look. I try to be holy. I try to do this. But the reality is this: I am a sinner. I've lied and I've deceived others. We try to paint a picture that I'm good and I'm innocent and I'm blameless, even when we know that's not true. What we don't realize is that the person that we're deceiving primarily is not anyone else, but it's me. It's me. And I want you to think about that for just a second. How can I ask God to forgive us for something if I'm not even willing to admit that I'm wrong? How can God clean me? How can God cleanse me from this deep-seated dirt in my heart if I keep saying that I don't even have it? Brendan, that's ridiculous. Your flesh and your blood, you're imperfect. But we see this Pharisee goes about it a completely different way. We see the words of someone going out of his way to appear like he has his life all together. I love the language that he uses. He doesn't even care what people think. He's so convinced that he's devout. Man, I'm such a great follower of Jesus. I'm such a great Christian. My behavior is my justification. That's what he's saying. I'm so devout, my behavior justifies everything that I've done. But he couldn't see that he was completely wasting his efforts. Because it's not what you do. He's trying to become someone, let's just be honest, that he's not. And this is the reality. He knows it. The reality is you know it. I've tried to be somebody for so long that I'm not. I've tried to act like something that I'm not. I tried to put on an identity that I'm not. And I'm getting to the place where I'm just saying things over and over to all these different people, but now I'm kind of getting everything mixed up, and I'm actually asking, is this really who I am? Because listen to the words that he said, that this isn't really who I am. I know that this isn't really who I am, because otherwise he wouldn't have pointed to the tax collector and say, I'm better than he is, God. Thank God that I'm not him. And some of us are walking around life and we're judging other people. Thank God at least I'm not them. At least my sin isn't like that sin. At least I don't look like that. At least I don't act like that. At least I don't talk like that. If the Pharisee was being really honest with himself and with God, then he'd recognize this right here, that he was struggling with the things that he wasn't able to get past on his own. How many of us in here this morning, we're dealing with some things that I can't get past? And I try, and I try. The good news is Jesus is saying, you ain't got to do it on your own. But see, we see the tax collector who recognizes that he's completely lost. and that he can't be saved unless God steps in and has mercy on him. God, he pounds his chest. I'm just a sinner and I'm not worthy. God, I know that I'm imperfect. I know that I've robbed. I know that I've stolen. She was a widow and I just seen an opportunity and I did it. But God, I know that I'm imperfect. Would you have mercy on me? Dietrich Bonhoeffer said this. This is long, so I put it on the screen. I want you to take a picture of this. Write it down. This is so good. He writes that he who is alone with his sin is utterly alone. But it's in the grace of the gospel, which is so hard for the pious to understand. It confronts us with the truth and says, you are a sinner, a great, desperate sinner. Now come as the sinner you are to the God who loves you. For Christians, can I tell you what's so important about confession of sin? Ultimately, it's the application of the gospel. I mean, if you guys were at our Bible study just a few weeks ago and you're like, oh, I missed it. That's okay. We're going to have First Wednesday again. It's coming around the corner. It's going to be so good. But what is Dietrich saying here? For Christians, when I confess my wrongdoings and my sin, it's the application of the gospel. Here's what it is. It's the washing of my soul. I can be saved, and I can still stub my toe, and I can make some mistakes. But the reality is, when sin stinks is when I think that I've not sinned and I put on self-righteousness. But he's like, no. When you confess, I'm washing myself with the word. It's the application of the gospel. An honest prayer for you and me, the reality of what we're uncovering in this series, is it can be painful. But I've also learned, y'all, an honest prayer can be painful when my identity has been misplaced in other things. Because I get so confused and I feel so lost. I feel like, let me say it this way. If the Father introduces you, do you know what he says? He says, this is my son. This is my daughter, within who I'm well, what? Pleased. Do you think I'm introducing myself that way? No. Do you really think right now Jesus is well pleased with your soul? If you were standing face to face with God, would he say, man, I'm so well pleased with you? This is hard. Because the reality is I wouldn't introduce myself that way because I believe the lie. And I think a lot of us in the room have believed the lie too. Oh, he's not well with me because I've done X, Y, and Z. I am what I do. Do you know what I've done? Do you know the sins that I've committed? Do you know how many of them I've tried to hide under the rug that no one could see? Get down the corners. Don't look under the rug. Oh my gosh. Do you know how many things are behind this curtain right now that I'm hiding? You are what God has done for you. I am not the sins that I've committed. I'm not the atrocities that I've even thought. The reality today for you and for me, I'm the action that applied on the cross. The arms that were stretched out wide. The nails that were pierced into the hands. The sword that was struck in the side, and the blood and the water that drained out. That was all for me. I am the actions of the cross. I am the actions of the cat of nine tails that whipped on his back for the blood to flow. I am the actions of a man being laid down in a tomb. But thank God it doesn't end there. I am the actions of a Christ who rose on the third day and is sitting on the right hand of God today. Soren Kierkegaard said this, that when I put my identity in something other than Jesus, that's sin. Building my identity on something other than Jesus is a slippery slope of isolation. But the reality is this, that I am the child of the one true King. I am the child of Jesus today. I am one with Jesus today. So it's simply this. It's the moment that I realize that I got to position my petition before the Lord. There's some moments in the life where I got to look myself in the mirror and I got to position my petition. I might feel trapped in any type of moment. And you might be here today and I feel trapped in a loveless marriage. You might feel trapped in thoughts that you don't know how to process. You might be like the tax collector. I'm rejected by friends, and now I'm rejected by family. I got Pharaoh in Egypt behind me, and I got the Red Sea in front of me. And Brandon, I don't know what to do. I can tell you what to do this morning. It's time for you to begin to petition. It's time for you to position the petition of my heart. God, I need you in this moment. I know that how I feel isn't what I'm supposed to be feeling. So in this moment, I'm going to start petitioning all of heaven. Why? Because freedom for your heart is found in the presence of God. Elijah called fire down from heaven. So cool if you've never read it before. He goes, stands before all the false prophets, and he gets a little cocky. He starts hollering at them. He takes his sacrifice after they call all day and all night calling on this false idol. He's like, I think he's asleep. Scream louder. Remember, it's in a drought. It's his turn. He takes excess water and just really begins to drench it. Why? To prove to them how great God is. He calls out and prays this prayer. He has this petition that he positioned before the Lord. And the Lord came down and consumed the fire to prove himself the real one, proven God. Like, that's great. But even in that moment, he still ran away. Afraid. What? Why am I telling you this? Because you can be fired from your job, but you can never be fired from your work. I don't work for a paycheck. I work to honor the Lord. Brandon, what are you talking about this morning? What does that mean? What I'm saying is my petition is not for you. I could care less what you think about my petition. I could care less of what you think that you know or what you think that you understand, because I'm not doing it to make you happy. I'm not doing it for you to say amen. I'm not doing it for you to say, let me come beside you. Let me walk with you. No, this is my journey, and my petition isn't for you. My petition is for the Lord. It doesn't matter what stands against me. It doesn't even matter who stands with me. My petition isn't for you. It wasn't built for you. It's for the Lord. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Brandon, I'm not walking in my calling. I'm not even in church right now. The calling is not based on who's around you, but it's based on who summoned you and who's called you. My petition isn't for you. Can I get a little vulnerable today? It wasn't just, I can still remember the day years ago in the living room with my daddy. The air in his body from an asthma attack completely left him. And I can still remember the trauma of him just holding my mom and just letting go and dropping and dying on the floor in our living room. And I remember running, screaming out of the house, crying, God, what are you doing? But I remember there was a man who decided this is the moment that I have to position my petition. And he walked in the room, and he seen my dad on the ground, and he just begins to prophesy, and he begins to speak life right there in the moment into my dad. But I'm on the sidewalk, and I'm running to the train tracks. In that moment, I felt the Lord asking me, will you petition right now the position that you're in to me? And I remember crying out to the Lord, God, I don't know that you can save my dad, but in this moment, I believe that you can. And I'm going to give you everything I got this moment if you'll save the man. I'll preach your word if you would save the man. I begin to position my petition in that moment. And can I tell you something that's still in disbelief today? They rushed my dad to the hospital. I remember being with the doctors and them talking to me and my mom and them being like, we don't know what's going to happen because of the amount of time he was on the oxygen, and you guys live really, really far out there in the country, and it took a long time for the paramedics to get you, and it took a long time for the ambulance to get here. We don't know what's going to happen. My dad woke up, and he's completely fine living today. What if you would just change, and I got to position the petition of my prayer today? Come on, somebody. But Brandon, you don't understand the position that I'm in. It's hard. Listen, for some of you today, I understand the position. You may have been crowding the plate. You've been maybe like Brandon, your butt's sticking out. And you're like, man, too many fast bars are coming in. Sometimes you need to take a step back. And I just got to reposition my petition. Can I say it this way? Sometimes you need to pivot. Sometimes you need to pivot. Keep the foot in the batter's box. Give the timeout, and you just got to pivot. I got to line up. I got to change it. I got to do a little something. But don't give up. Don't give up. Sometimes your petition, too many P's, too many petitions that's going on. I just need to pivot. I just need to pivot. Can I be honest with you? The reason sometimes I can't pivot is I have a list that I'm building out to God. I'm saying, God, I will only pivot if you'll do this and you'll do that. I get it. But Jesus ain't Santa Claus. But you have a list. And Jesus definitely is checking to see who's naughty or nice. I know that. You got a list. No matter how the list is built, it exists on the foundation of our desires. I can try to make it super holy. God, I can try to make it super churchy. But why am I building a list? It's on what Brandon wants. It's on my heart. It's on my desires. But our desires cannot always be trusted to be in our best interest. I want to repeat that again. I want you to hear it. Our desires cannot always be trusted to be in our best interest. Kids are going to run to the kitchen. You know what they want? I want some sweets. I want to eat the candy. And as a parent, guess what? You want them to have what they want because you're a good parent. And you're like, I'm a better parent than your mama. Here's the candy. Remember, Daddy gave it to you. 1 point for Daddy. Mommy's losing. Yes. But as a parent, you also know they need their protein and their veggies to grow. You know that. I want my kids to have what they want. I want to give you what you want. Tommy, Susie, I want to give you what you want. But here's what God says. But not if you're not going to get what you need. Come on, somebody. John the Baptist. In the Bible, it says that he looked like a wild man. Crazy looking dude. Hair going everywhere. But yet, what did John the Baptist eat? He was eating a diet of honey and locusts. That dude crazy. That's a weird looking dude. But here's what Jesus said about John the Baptist. There's no man who's ever lived who's greater than John the Baptist. Let me just summarize my whole message in this one statement here. God is more committed to your destiny than your desires. God is committed to you today. You may feel like you're far, far away from heaven, but God has never lost his commitment to you. As much as you're pivoting back towards Jesus, he's leaning in and he's pivoting towards you today. God is committed to your destiny over your desires. David stood before Goliath, but he didn't do it in Saul's armor. Saul's like, David, if you're going to fight Goliath, you got to put on my armor. You got to put on my helmet. But David's like, that's not me. I can't do it. I got to walk in the destiny that God has prepared for me. Daniel was tossed in a lion's den, but yet he was never alone. Paul and Silas were in prison. They were in chains with bloody backs, but yet they decided, I got to pivot to my worship. Can we stand to our feet as I'm almost done? Here's what I want to tell you guys this morning as I finish this message out. Don't let yesterday's wounds distract you from today's worship. Don't let yesterday's drama prevent today's destiny in your life. Don't let what you went through define who you will be. Everyone in this life wants to come into relationship with you, and here's what they want to do. They want to educate you on what they think. But the reality is today, in the midst of the pivot, what will you believe? What will you believe? Stop looking at what the enemy has done in your life. Man, the enemy has done this, and I've been through that, and I've been through hell and back. But what if the words that came off my lips were this? I'm going to start saying, look what the Lord has done. Even if I got to get old school Jay, and I really got to start singing, look what the Lord has done. You know nothing about old church songs, do you? Look what the Lord has done. The banjos are playing, the fiddles are going. But sometimes I got to break out the old song so I can pre-pivot into the petition that my heart needs to hear. Because the enemy's all around me, and he's encamped all around me. And it's easy for me to be focused on the negativity and the pain and the hurt. But sometimes I got to tell my weary heart, look at how good my God is. Look at how big my God is. Will I believe the truth of who Jesus is today? God knows what you need, even if it's not what you want. This is a little bit different. I want you to look at your neighbor. I want you to tell your neighbor, look what the Lord has done. Look what the Lord has done. You may only have a curtain. Tell the curtain, look what the Lord has done. The enemy tried to kill you, but look at what the Lord has done in your life. All hell broke loose against you. Oh God. But look what the Lord has done. I've been walking in my mess, but look at what the Lord has done. Can I declare this with you this morning? Would you come in agreement with me this morning? This is the time for me to repivot my petition into praise. That I'm going to praise out of my past. I'm going to praise out of my pain. I'm going to praise out of my worries. I'm going to praise out of my drama. I'm going to praise out of my fears. I'm going to praise out of my mess. And I'm going to praise myself right into a miracle. It might be the midnight hour, but God, I'm going to praise myself into the petition. As we bow our heads and close our eyes, I'm done. I'm going to stop screaming at you this morning. And I just want to talk to you for those last 60 seconds. God is not coming to condemn you or me for making mistakes. He doesn't throw his hands up and walk away when it looks like we failed or when we blatantly ignore him. Instead, he's continuously inviting us to come into him with our struggles, with the painful prayers. And there he waits. And he waits for us to respond to his invitation.